Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Jackman Group LLC Pause Break 30. Thanks for joining us on another Thursday. Just a reminder, we'll be streaming live on Facebook as well as YouTube. And if you're watching this live, do me a favor, just go ahead and share this with someone. Go ahead and do that now. And if you're watching it live or even on replay, go ahead and like the broadcast. We'll also love to see your comments, so you can do that as well. We'll give an opportunity for any questions that you'll have for our featured guests. So today's broadcast, we're going to be talking about real estate. And the topic is winning, which is Wynning, winning with real estate. And our special guests they're some very close friends of mine, and they are Jeff and Jill Wynn, and they're going to be talking about how do we win with real estate. So both Jill and Jeff Wynn, they're salespeople or salespersons, I should say, and licensed associate brokers with the Wynn-ing team here in Rochester. So I'm going to bring them in and let's get started here. Can you guys hear us well? Welcome.
Hi,
hey,
Patrick.
how we doing, Patrick?
Thanks for having us.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. Thanks for coming to Wynn-ing team. So our topic is winning with real estate. Again, this is Jeff and Jill Wynn, or Jill and Jeff Wynn, I should say. I think that's on the business card. So Jill and Jeff Wynn.
Great.
So welcome to Pause Break 30. I really appreciate it. I want to thank you for taking the time to have a discussion with us over the next, say, 25 minutes or so. So we're going to get started. Like we do with every broadcast, Jill and Jeff, we ask our guests to give a brief summary of themselves and what they do. So I'm going to throw it out there. Tell us about the two of you and what is the Wynn-ing, Wynning team.
Well, thanks for having us, Patrick, and we appreciate the opportunity to share some information with you and your guests today. Jeff and I have been married for 22 years. We're parents of two girls, and we have been involved in real estate. I think collectively we've been involved for over 40 years, if you can believe that.
Yeah.
40 years, wow.
Yes, I got my real estate license about 20 years ago, and he got his,
Well,
when he was
27 or so.
27 years ago. So what really propelled us to be interested in real estate is to be able to provide a service to people who may not understand the their ability to be able to purchase a home. And many people, particularly people of color, have rented and may not know that there are programs and opportunities out there that they'd be able to take advantage of. So we wanted to, provide some insight to others about the ability to purchase a home, to have something that grows in equity, and just be able to help people invest their money in something that's sustainable and that grows in value. So that's really why we got involved when I married Jeff 22 years ago now. Can you believe it? This
22
month,
years.
22 years. I got my license, I think, less than 3 or 4 months after we were married. So we've been trying to just help people to acquire homes and to invest.
Okay, good. Jeff, you want to add anything?
I think she about covered it all for the most part. We are obviously the Wynn-ing team. Our last name is Wynn, so it works good, and we work well together. So, and that's what's helped us to be successful for all these years in the business. So it's been good.
Okay, good. So let's talk about getting a little feedback there. Let's talk about COVID-19 and the impact that has had on yourself as well as your real estate business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it's been interesting because as you may be or may not be aware, since this COVID-19 and everything's kind of come to a halt, if you will, in New York State, the governor has kind of deemed real estate services as non-essential at this time. So we have not been able to at all go out and show homes and view properties and take clients out. So it's been a little challenging. So there's been kind of new and creative ways, kind of like these platforms to do business as and still move forward with potential clients who are interested in purchasing. So.
Okay, good. What I want to do, Jeff, is that I want to invite the audience before we move forward is if they have any comments or questions, if they can just hit it in the comment line and post it, and I'll bring it up, and then you'll have an opportunity to respond to any questions that they may have live. Sure. But let's move forward here. So if someone is interested in buying or selling a home, how are you, and I know you touched briefly on this, how are you and your fellow realtors handling those interactions and transactions now that we are still in the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, good question, Patrick. So to your point, I did kind of allude to it. So since we cannot officially go out, and this goes for pretty much everyone across the real estate industry, it's been where we cannot enter homes, we cannot go out and show homes, buyers cannot enter homes, as well as realtors specifically. So what we've been able to do in this new era, if you will, is we've been able to show homes via platforms such as this, as certain virtual engagements and virtual meetings. Quite a few realtors are now starting to, for instance, if we have a potential buyer who's interested in a property, a lot of realtors are setting up showings via like a Zoom meeting, if you will. So, we've been on a few of these where we've seen quite a few people when you can look at how many people are logged in. And like, for instance, last week we had a property that we were showing for a client who was interested in one of our local towns. And we looked at it was 63 individuals on the call. So it's been a way to show, the sellers walking around with the camera, showing opening every closet door. The realtor, who is the listing agent who represents the seller, is kind of facilitating and answering or walking through the tour, and also giving insights to any potential questions that may come through a chat. So,
wow. So the seller or the representative of the seller is actually taking whatever, their camera or phone or whatever, and just walking through each room.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, exactly.
Is there invitation that is sent out to potential buyers or realtors or brokers?
Good question. Yes. So ultimately, in the business, we represent potential buyers or sellers, and realtors represent potential buyers and sellers as well. So in this scenario, yes, when you're buying a home, the buying agent and the selling agent are like liaisons between a seller and a buyer. So we come together and coordinate. So, for instance, a buyer calls Jill or myself and says, I want to see this home at this address. We then take action to reach out to that selling agent who's representing that seller to say, hey, we have a client interested in this property. We'd like to set up a time to show it. And now with this new COVID era, there's either a link when we make that request via online, or if we call, they'll send an email with the information to log into a potential group showing, as I mentioned earlier, like a Zoom call, and then we can pass that information on to the potential client for them to log in as well to engage in the tour.
Do you think that is kind of a new normal as we start to move forward? Let's look past COVID-19. Is that something that you think will stay, or will it go back to where there is the person in the house? What do you foresee happening?
Well, we do. We think that it is going to be a part of the new normal. It's just going to be another tool in the toolbox of how we can market our homes, how we can get the word out about a particular listing, how people can purchase homes. I think what's been most fascinating to me is that people are buying homes through this platform. They're buying cars through this platform. Right. They're being able to, have doctor appointments through this platform. So I think this is a real paradigm shift in general. It's going to open up more opportunities for people to have the ability to view properties in a way they hadn't previously.
Awesome. So if we look at the national and local landscape, how's the market doing in general?
Overall, the market has been, it's down, obviously, somewhat due to COVID. I think locally, I think in all markets it's going to be a little different, right? Because depending on how COVID has affected certain areas and geographies, it's going to be a little bit more down in those areas versus some where hasn't been as heavy per se. So in our local market, the number of properties on the market are actually down. I think overall potential sellers are a little concerned about putting their properties up now, kind of waiting for the states and the local governments to open back up, because they do realize there's still that segment of potential buyers who want to see it, touch it, walk through it, versus buying something virtually. So I think some have decided to wait in light of wanting to get back to that type of opportunity, whatever that's going to look like. If we're walking through with masks and gloves, which I'm sure will probably be, maybe taking fevers at the door. Who knows? But I think it has definitely scaled back some as far as amount of properties on the market. But with that said, there's still a large contingency of potential buyers who are still out here able and ready to purchase, even in spite of that right now.
Great. I have a question here that's coming up. This is from Derek Chambers in Florida. And here's a question here.
Well, he can see it.
Yeah. How can I learn about real estate investing?
Good question, Derek. There's quite a few ways that you can learn about real estate investing. As investors ourselves, we've talked to folks like Derek as well to help them. But as well, I think it's a good way to actually really, sometimes depending on your local market, I think you can learn generally from most anyone who's in the business. But I think it's good to link yourself maybe with a potential mentor for wherever you are in your markets, for someone has some experience, who's been an investor, who maybe has purchased properties in the past, to give some good guidance and just a trustworthy resource as well too, who is maybe kind of can, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, as I say, where you can kind of learn from some of the stumbling blocks or ask the appropriate questions of those who have gone that path already. So I would say probably more than likely just link up with someone who has been an investor and maybe has some good experience that can guide you down that path. It was probably one of the best things. Anything else?
I would say, just to add, thinking about when Jeff and I were married and he already had investment properties, and just kind of thinking about how you want to invest initially, not maybe starting small, not going for a big commercial property that may require you to depend on monthly rents in order to be able to make the mortgage. Maybe starting small and buying the first property outright and doing a fixer-upper and maybe flipping it, or putting someone in there for long-term tenant. So I would just add, trying to start small and then work your way up to what you see on a lot of TV shows. I think sometimes there's that misconception that that's the way it's going to be in that first initial purchase. So,
all right, great question, Derek. If you have any other questions for Jill and Jeff Wynn, we're talking about Wynn-ing, which is Wynnning, Jeff and Jill Wynn. If you have any questions for them about real estate, whether it's investing or purchasing of properties, just drop us a comment and we'll put it up there up on the screen for you so that you can have your answers. So that brings up a great question, Jill and Jeff. So I know prior to COVID-19, and correct me if I'm wrong here, banks were requiring about 20% down payment. Is that right? Or as much as that?
Partially, it's partially right. Really depends on the financing, Patrick, and what kind of financing an individual is going through. Because there's your private lending, there's your government assisted loans. So depending on the type of financing, they may not necessarily need 20% down. So there's some programs right now, like FHA, which is the Federal Housing Association, where they could ultimately get in a property for as little as 3% down.
Oh,
Now,
wow.
that's again just down payment. Now, in our area, generally it runs around 3.5% roughly. And then maybe potentially conventional, you can maybe, which is more private funding, can be 3.5% to 5% as well. So ultimately, if it's an owner-occupied single-family home, you can get in as low as that amount. Now, when you're talking more in the upwards of 15 to 20%, depending if you're buying a multifamily. And again, if that's either owner-occupied, because some folks say, hey, I want to own a property, a two-family. I want to live in one side and I want to rent out the other side, which obviously is a good opportunity for a first property to build some equity and as well have that other side help carry a lot of your expenses. So that may require more money down in addition to when an investor is just buying a multifamily unit and say they're not going to live in it. They already have their primary residence, but they want a piece of investment property. That could potentially require 20 to 25% down if you're not going to live in the property for a multifamily.
Got it. So how are the requirements now that we are going through the pandemic? Has that changed in any way?
Not really at this time. I mean,
No.
it's pretty much been the same. If anything, I think it's still very attractive for a potential buyer to get into a property for minimal amount down. There's still a lot of good banking programs for first-time home buyers as well that assist with closing costs. Some that will even pay the entire closing costs, because you have to remember, in addition to your down payment, that's kind of your seed money that the potential buyer has to bring to the table. And then there's additional funds on top of that for closing. And there's some good programs, to help bridge that gap, if you will, to help buyers get into the programs. So as of right now, there hasn't been much change. I mean, if anything, the Federal Reserves have kept the rates nice and low. I mean, you can get into a 30-year mortgage in most places around the country for less than 3.5%. And if you're financing less terms, that rate can go down even lower. So it's very attractive and inexpensive to, borrow money, if you will. So obviously, there's a lot less interest paid on a mortgage. So it's very good.
I think with the COVID, I think we have to remember that the federal government is trying to infuse money into the economy.
Right.
So there are a lot of programs for first-time home buyers. There's a initiative really to get people to spend money. And purchasing a home is one way of keeping the economy moving. In our area, it's a little difficult because the inventory is so low, but there are wonderful programs out there if you do find, if you have good credit and if you have all the prerequisites, there's many opportunities to purchase a home.
Great, thank you. Again, if you have any questions for Jill and Jeff, feel free to drop it in the comments and then we'll have them answer that. Let's say someone, you started going down that road. Let's say someone is interested in purchasing a house, Jill and Jeff. What do they need beyond the credit? What else is needed? Let's say for a first-time buyer and then for an investor.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think for a first-time buyer, back in real estate school, they tell you always deal with ready, willing, and able buyers. So it's very important not to put the cart before the horse when you are purchasing a home. You need to know how much of a home you can afford. So a lot of times people will want to purchase a home outside of their budget and they have no idea of what they can afford. And that requires them to meet with the bank and be able to provide all the information about their expenses, their credit history, anything that they are paying, monthly payments, car payments, what they're currently, what type of debt they currently have. And then that number is calculated, a percentage of their income is provided, and they're able to determine what they can afford for a mortgage, a monthly mortgage. And then that is how you go out and look for a home. So if you really only can afford a $150,000 house, it makes no sense to look at a $200,000 house or $250,000 house. So that's important, and that really requires you to connect with a mortgage broker at a bank, typically, or a credit union. Knowing your credit is very important, knowing, where you are with your credit score. It's good to have a high number. And, the better your credit score is, the better interest rate you're going to get. So those are things that you need to do. You need to know, where do you want to live? Is it important for you to have school districts in consideration, or do you like urban areas? What taxes can you afford? So there's a list of things that that a buyer needs to be familiar with.
This is great information. What about for investing? Is it the same for investors, or is there something different?
So it's very similar for investors for the most part, kind of to Jill's point. A lot of those same things are necessary. Now, an investor may not be as so concerned about per se school districts, possibly because they may not be living there. I mean, they may be looking at it, and most investors do look at it from a cash flow perspective. So how much potential income is coming in, and then with their expenses, how much can they potentially net out of that property on a monthly basis, and making sure that, three things in real estate, we always say location, location, location. And I think that's true for an investor as a home owner occupant, or versus someone who's just looking to have a piece of investment property, because in the same token, they're looking at, okay, is this going to maintain value? Is this property going to appreciate? Is it going to maintain where the neighborhoods are too as well too? Is it going to attract good renting clientele? So a lot of different factors. So I think it's very necessary from an investor standpoint too. And really for an investor too, you have to think about repairs. I mean, just like owning a home, if something breaks or something has to be fixed, do you have those skill sets to repair a drain, or if a pipe breaks, or do you have a list of individuals you can call on that can help you make these repairs as well? So I think that's key, and that's important when you're looking at getting into it from an investment standpoint, to have those individuals or potentially have those skill sets available to do some of those things as well to keep costs down.
Jeff and Jill, we have another question here. This is from Anthony McCullough. It says, do you work with investors like wholesalers, flippers, etc.?
Good question, Anthony. And yes, we do. Differently, and it depends. It's based on what they're looking for as well too. There's different aspects of it from a wholesaler. For someone who just wants to flip, there's, again, buy and hold is flipping, obviously, versus someone who maybe just wants to wholesale, make a few dollars and just transfer the property on. So yes, we do. And it's different for each different investor has a different objective in those categories as well.
Great. I have two questions for you. Let's say someone is interested in getting into the career of real estate. What steps should they make?
So ultimately, for the most part, it differs from state to state. But if they're interested in obtaining a license and going through the process, generally, and it's changed quite a bit from when I took, when we both took our courses, you used to have to take like a 45-hour course, sit through a class, pass that exam, and then you would go on to take a state exam to pass the state exam as well. And then you have a time frame to kind of work under a broker, if you will. And a broker is someone who owns a franchise of a real estate company that you can work under and gain that experience. So it is very much process is the same, but now it's like up to 75 hours of a course that you have to take and still follow those procedures. You have to be 18 years of age. You have to have no felonies or a record, proof of U.S. residency are some of the things. And then generally you have to keep your education up. Once you obtain your license, every 2 years you have to do a renewal process where you have to take online coursing hours, and it's like 35 or 40 hours now.
40 hours.
I think it's 40, yes, to renew it every 2 years to keep it active. So,
is that across the country, or is it just in Rochester?
It's similar across the country, but each state is different, and the criteria for each state is different. So we're licensed in New York State, and we're licensed in New York State only. So we can't necessarily go to Florida to, work and sell a home. We'd have to consult with the local realtor there to help assist in that process. And we've done that where someone's moving out of state, we'll have a referral process that we can refer clients to different parts of the country, wherever they want to be. Under the brokerage that we work for, they have a national, even international relocation process where that can be obtained through other realtors in their local communities that they may be moving to. So,
and I think that hits on the question that Pearl Wavy has. Can the Wynn Company help in Texas with purchasing a home?
Yes, exactly, Pearl. We can make a referral to your point to anywhere in the country. Yes, and get a qualified realtor based on whatever you're looking for, based on your criteria. So,
good.
One thing about real estate is that it is very cooperative. I mean, usually we work for Howard Hanna, but we sell homes to Remax and Century 21. It's a very cooperative type of industry, so people are happy to help each other out.
Right. Yeah.
Good.
Operating broker. So we just choose what company to work for, and to Jill's point, we can work with an agent from any other company to sell a property.
So for individuals like Pearl who may be interested in purchasing a home in Texas or across the country, how can individuals get in contact with the Wynn-ing team if they're interested in requiring your services?
So you can email us both at either Jeff Wynn at howardhanna.com. It's Howard as in the name, Hanna, HANNA.com, or Jill Wynn at howardhanna.com as well. And we can respond from there and start the dialogue and see how we can help you out.
Okay, so Jill Wynn at howardhanna.com.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
And Jeff Wynn.
Yep.
All right.
Correct.
I think this is one of your friends here. Last one. What is the best way for me to purchase a house if I live out of state? That's Robert Downs.
If you live out of New York State, then we can definitely give you a referral.
Right.
We will, like I said, to my point, we will refer you through a relocation department that our company has to find someone in the area that you're looking for, whatever state that may be in, or whatever state you may be moving to.
Okay, great. As we end, give me the email address again so that people can contact you.
Yep, it's Jill Wynn, all together, at howardhanna.com.
All right, I'm going to try to put it in here. Jill Wynn at howardhanna.
Yep, .com, as well as mine is all together, Jeff Wynn at howardhanna.com.
Okay, so there we go. All right, Jill Wynn at howardhanna.com. So that's the way, right?
Correct.
That's it.
You got it.
Okay. All right, Jill and Jeff, I want to thank you. We're just up on the clock here. We are about 40 seconds away. So I want to thank you for your time. I hope this was helpful for our viewers. If you have any additional questions or you require Jeff and Jill's services, again, you can contact Jill at jillwynn@howardhanna.com or jeffwynn@howardhanna.com. So guys, thank you so very much. I wish you much success and as you go forward. And just in terms of transparency, both Jeff and Jill are personal friends of mine, and they also sold me my my home. So great job.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yes.
And anytime we can help you, we're happy to do it.
Yeah, we appreciate the opportunity and, love to always help others out. So thanks for having us.
All right. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Okay, so that's Jeff and Jill Wynn of the Wynn-ing team here in Rochester. That brings us to the end of another Pause Break 30. I want to thank you for viewing, and also for those that submitted questions. I want to thank you for that. If you're watching it live, or if you're watching it on a replay, if you want to contact Jeff or Jill Wynn, again, it is Jill Wynn, WYNN at howardhanna.com, or Jeff Wynn at howardhanna.com. So next week, we'll have another exciting guest and informational. So look forward to next Thursday, 7:30 p.m. on the East Coast time. And this is Pause Break 30. Until then, I bid you good night, safety and good health to you and your family, and may God continue to bless you. See you next week.